Welcome to RollerCoaster Tycoon, one of my favorite memories growing up, and never gets old. Alright, it does get old, but I like the classic style. It's a very defined way of sort of constricting the user to be able to create in a setup that seems to make sense. Let's jump in. Let's start with the first one there is, and Forest Frontiers is almost like the Sandbox Park. 250 guests in your park at the end of October year 1 with a park rating of 600, which is fairly easy overall. But let's jump in since it's been a long time since I've played this, and I don't know if anyone else has played this before. Let's go ahead and just open the park. This will attract guests to show up in the first place. Obviously there's nothing to do right now, so let's give them something. Scrambled Eggs is kind of a really basic sort of topsy-turvy spinner ride. And we have to connect a queue line to it so that people can line up. Like so. And then an exit path so that they can get back to the park. And price is set at $1. I've learned that this was a trick that I never knew growing up. If you check the excitement rating and use this as almost a sort of rounded up dollar value, that the rides will not get less appealing as time goes on, because it actually just uses that as a baseline. So each ride will be exactly as appealing as the price is. Otherwise, the rides will sort of diminish, and the returns will diminish. Eventually, the prices will get driven down. People will only want to go to the newer stuff, and you'll end up with rides that are like 10 cents and then are not turning profit anymore. We're going to start with $5 for the admission to the park. If you don't set an admission price at all, then they'll never tell you whether it's cheap or expensive. But $5 is a ripoff for this park so far. So let's build it up a little bit more. Swinging Ship's another good basic thrill ride. Again, let's do a queue line. Not the best design. Actually, that doesn't work at all. I need an exit path. And that's connected. Let's turn that on and 210. Which means that this will be a little bit more appealing, but also a little bit more expensive. We have 10 guests. Fantastic. Let's put a little bit of food in here. I generally leave the prices default, and they'll be the same throughout the park. Not really concerned about where the cheapest price for drinks or food is in this park. The same with drinks. Give them a restroom. Despite what some people do, I'm going to leave the restrooms free. People are spending enough money here, paying admission and ride cost. Alright. So we spent almost a couple thousand out of our $10,000 starting loan, which is a loan. We don't have any actual cash. But the loan interest in this game is just absolutely nothing. Even in a successful park, it's almost unnecessary to pay it back. Let's build a slide. It's another little cheap ride that is generally popular. Rotate the map so I can get to it. Let's do the line over here and the exit this way. Often a test rating and excitement rating will not appear until the ride is already open or someone has gone on it. Depends on whether it's gone through a test cycle. This one obviously doesn't have a test cycle, so this will probably wait until a single person has ridden it. Oh, or not. 186. And there's also a setting in here that lets more people onto the ride, which doesn't do anything other than essentially increases the queue line capacity in essence, because that just means there's people sitting up at the top waiting to go. We're on a start here. Let's see what else we can add. Do a haunted house. Let's get sort of the basic rides out of the way here, so we can move on to the more fun stuff. The entrance there and the exit there. Let's move that tree so that we can pipe this right through there and throw the exit on. So this one we can actually test it first, which will give us our ratings before we open it, so there's not some people who think they're getting it for free. Park rating is at 607 right now, so we just need it to stay there or higher. But let's add some bigger stuff. This is a little bit cheaper. The steel mini roller coaster is not quite as expensive as some of the bigger rides. Crazy Caterpillar is a default design. Let's build a custom one. We're just going to make it basic. I don't have a ton of money to spend at this, but typically these rides are decently easy to keep the price down on. The longer the station is, the more train cars we can fit in there, which is generally good. It just means that the ride capacity is larger and it moves through faster. This is a maximum capacity station. So let's add the chain to this. And the nice thing about the steel mini, so I'm sidetracked here, this tells us that guests value the park higher than what we're charging for it right now, which is nice. The most disappointing park in the country, and yet still want the price to be higher. I'll just increment the price by $5. The nice thing about the steel mini roller coaster is that you can actually do chains on the curves, because it's not actually chain, it's rubber wheel propelled. So the nice thing is you can actually turn it and keep the chain in a more sort of constricted environment, and basically make the ride itself a little bit more compact. And this is just kind of improvising. I don't really go into crazy depth on how realistic my roller coasters are, but this is just a basic. Do a helix. Maybe a larger helix. Oops, let's remove the trees so that we can make this happen. That's kind of a common theme in this game, is just removing trees. And the other thing that this roller coaster can do that some of the larger ones can't is you can actually go straight from a steep banking to a totally flat, which means that you can do very sharp sort of dips. And I just want to keep an eye on the height. We're at 14 from a 19 drop. Looks like it's going to rain. Thunder. Another thing that you can do in these, it's not necessarily the best thing to do is the sort of turn on curves, which are not banked in this game. So if you choose to put one of these in, do know that it will be much more intense in the G-force ratings than if you were to use a banked curve. But as long as the train's going slow enough and it's only a couple of them and they're used sparingly, then it can be a nice asset to the ride. In general, in this game, you need a gap of 2 vertical spaces in order to fit one track below another track or a track above a pathway or a queue line. So we just have to keep in mind. You can also do a diagonal or sort of more of a straight and isometric, which are really hard to use in isometric because of what they just look like. I think I'm going to be colliding with something right there, which isn't going to work. Let's try going up. Nope. I've got a Ferris wheel. Try to put that in. Don't know if I'm going to be able to use this piece. If I try to use the curve while I bank, nope, this might not happen. Because I think that is, yeah, 19 is now way too high. Oh well. Let's uncurve it if I can. Can also keep this one additional, which just floats on that curve. Or even 2 maybe. It'll just kind of push me along horizontally. And now I might be able to sneak it through there if I go down a little bit. But it is quite hard to see in this view where my actual track is placing and where the other tracks might be colliding with it. This coaster is probably about ready to wrap up, and we've only got about $3,000 left, so I don't want to stretch it on much longer. So let's land it at the ground and just make it before the end of that. And I'm going to need to do brakes at 22 miles an hour. And I think I might have overshot this just a touch because I think I need to leave room for an S-bend so that I can, so I'm two units short here. Let's see if I can fix that by making this drop straight vertical to the floor. Looks like I can. That gives me 1. Bank it that way. Now, I could not put the brakes here. Do an S-bend. Problem is, in doing it this way, first of all, I'll have to sacrifice a couple units here. But since I'm cutting it so tight here, there's no room for banking on this curve. And being that it just dropped from 10 to 6, that might be pretty fast. So the potential problem this might cause is, now I did go down one and then go to vertical, but there's a banking there, so I really can't avoid that. That might be a little whiplashy around that curve, but let's put our brakes in here, which doesn't do much except in the event that the station brakes fail. These brakes may still work and slow the train before it crashes into the next train, which can happen in this game. Now let's put the entrance in and the exit in. Let's go ahead and test this. When you have G-force ratings that are too high, the nausea and intensity ratings can sort of skyrocket and even negate the excitement ratings. Now scrambled eggs is broken down and we don't have any mechanics, so I'm going to quickly hire a mechanic and also a handyman, because the paths look like they're getting a little bit dirtier. I think since I'm running this with 2 trains, I really should also be paying more attention in case one of these trains doesn't make it over a hill and decides to start running backwards, because that would crash my ride before it even opened. But made it in just fine. Let's see what the test results indicate. Medium, high, and medium, which is actually a decent rating for this type of ride. Maybe a little short, but I'm happy with it. Now let's move this queue line. I think that's our main path. Let's try to just keep this straight. Set this for $5. And I also should tell this handyman not to mow the lawn, because in a park this size, he's never going to do anything except mow the lawn. These benches here are also breaking, which means that people are vandalizing them. And let's go to staff to hire a security guard, which hopefully will help circumvent that. And then let's go to benches and replace them so that it's a little less trashy. Having broken benches and lights actually encourages people to vandalize even more, regardless of what the security guards are doing. So it's generally good to just fix stuff as soon as you see it. It'd be nice if that was something that Handyman could do, but not in this game. I'm also going to put some trash cans so that people don't feel the need to litter. Putting benches right outside the exits of some of the more intense rides is also a decent idea. That way if people are feeling sick, they've got a place to rest and are a little less likely to vomit. What are people thinking about this? Not paying that much, looks too intense. It's matching the excitement rating, but we'll have to see how that works out. So far, let's look at rides and organized by profit. There's definitely ones that people are just not going on. Now, I've been told that this price trick works, but so far this doesn't really seem to be. So let's lower this. See if people start getting in that line. That looks like it. How about slide? $1.90. Let's go about $2.20. And people are getting on it then. Burgers and drinks. There's just not enough people in this park to have those turn profit yet. Let's take $1 off this as well. Not yet. That's $3.50. Okay, $3.50 and people are going on it for that price. You can resort this. So we still just, so Haunted House and Slide are now turning profit. Just RollerCoaster 1. Let's see what we may have missed while I was building that. Okay, Ferris wheel came out. Might as well build a Ferris wheel in here. See, I like to sneak things into places so that we can make this park as compact as you can fit. If I do there, I'm not going to have room for the best queue line, if any queue line. Let's go back here. And once again, they're telling me that the park is a little cheap. And I will happily increase that. Park, let's increment by $5 again. Alright, let's put the entrance there. And the exit on this side. And then exit straight through to there. Nice and clean, compact. Now let's open this and see what it says for excitement. 196, but that seems high. Let's go 130. This now seems quite popular. Looks like we might need another handyman. We'll also need to get told not to mow the grass. Alright, things are coming along. We've got park rating of 796 with 183 guests in the park. It's June. And in this game, it runs through typical fair seasons, so the year starts in March and ends in October. Which is why this might be a little confusing. The days actually do work, though. I think there are 30 or 31 in every month, though. Just because this is programmed in assembly, and they wanted it to be simple. He, Chris Sawyer, basically built this engine himself, which is amazing. I mean, if we're thinking about it, we're running 195 simulations in a game that was built in 2000. Little artificial intelligence. And this ran with almost no load time or lag time whatsoever and absolutely rarely crashed. It's pretty remarkable. Let's see what else we can add. Done all the ones that are like basically flat rides. Put an ice cream stall in. Let's see where we could sneak that. That looks like a decent spot. Let's see. Let's run this little car ride. Might use a preset one. Probably won't be building every single ride, especially in this park. There's a lot of cooler parks later on. Our customization is really fun. Let's see where we can sneak this in. Maybe use the space as well as we can. Put that there. Entrance and exit. I've cut myself. Need to be able to sneak through there, so this space might just die, but I'm fine. Oops, now let's do straight path. And let's open that up. Started with $1.20. See what the excitement rating shows after we start running. I think this is one of the rides that has to complete an entire cycle before you get test results. Most track rides are like that until one car completes its cycle to the station. It won't report any statistics. Still a lot of vomit there. Let's see. Might need to assign our animal to zones. If we click on this guy's zone, let's tell him that he gets to do this sort of top section. Top in that corner. And then this guy, let's tell him to do basically the other zone right now. It can be a little confusing using this sort of square grid system, but in general it'll do what you need it to do. Not my favorite, but it's better than clicking each individual square too when you have a park that gets bigger and bigger. Let's see if that keeps up a little bit more. $2.71. I'll probably go a little bit higher on that. $1.80. Yeah, people are still in rank. That's good. Now let's add a couple benches to this. Trash cans. So that if anyone's sickened by this tiny little car ride, they can relax on that bench. Well, everything's running pretty well. I want to do one last profit check. Burger bar, drink stall, ice cream. Everything else is turning profit currently. That's something that you kind of need to monitor constantly just to make sure that things are still turning profit after a while, especially as, in my experience, as you add more fun rides like this, people will begin to not appreciate the value of the sort of smaller introductory rides, especially for maybe their introductory prices. So reducing the price over time will help solve that. Park entrance fee is regarded as cheap again. Up it to $20. So far we've made almost $4,000 off of admission. 281 guests. I think I'm going to end this part here. I will see you in the next episode.